Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
I am ready for the event.
CW39, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Seth Kovar with the CW39. How do you hear me?
I have you loud and clear. How me?
All right. It's really excellent to get to talk to you today. I want to start off by getting to know you a little bit. I know we have a limited amount of time, but I would love to, for all the people out there who, as kids, were thinking about becoming astronauts, how did that work out for you? Like, did you pursue science and that led to getting into being an astronaut? Just the whole kit and caboodle, if you don't mind.
Oh, wow. So I've been very fortunate. I've had a very blessed career. I went to Lemoyne College undergrad for physics. I actually wanted to do engineering. They had a 3-2 program. I actually ended up staying for 4 years and just doing physics. And then I went on to the University of Maryland for aerospace engineering, where I earned a master's and a PhD in aerospace. After that, I went on to Ford Motor Company, and while I was working there, another company recruited me, and I ended up working at the Central Intelligence Agency for 7.5 years, around 7.5 years. When after that, I was selected to become an astronaut. It's a long story that I won't get into, but once I became an astronaut, then I started training. I trained for 15 years. I mean, I learned to fly the T-38 jet. I learned robotics. I learned how to do a spacewalk. I learned all about the International Space Station systems on board. I lived in a cave. I lived underwater. I've lived outdoors several times, and so I've done all kind of analog events as well. And after 15 years, I ended up here on the International Space Station. And I can truly say that even though it took 15 years, it was worth the wait.
That's wonderful. Where did you grow up, and how did you get to the space station?
Well, I grew up in Syracuse, New York, where Lemoyne College is located. And after that, I moved to Maryland to go to graduate school. And from there, I ended up in Michigan and back in Virginia. And now I live in Houston.
Excellent. And what kind of spacecraft brought you to the space station?
Well, I trained for Soyuz, and I trained a little bit for the Starliner, but I came up to the space station on the Dragon, on Endeavour.
And was that your first space flight of any kind?
Yes, it was my very first space flight.
Can you describe that, and then just getting to the International Space Station, your initial reaction?
Well, it was an amazing ride. As we were sitting there, we were waiting in the capsule to take off. Things were very quiet, and you're kind of a little nervous because you don't know what truly to expect. You kind of know because people have told you, but you don't. We hadn't experienced that. Most of us on the crew. But once the rocket lifted off, it was like a bunch of kids at an amusement park on a roller coaster ride. And, we kind of screamed like we were kids, and the surrealness of it all started settling in. And it was amazing to start to see the Earth from that vantage point. And we weren't out of our seats, but, we do have these little windows in the Dragon capsule. You can kind of peek out and see the Earth from that vantage point. So it was an amazing ride. Very smooth, very gentle docking even. So it was an amazing ride for us.
When did you arrive at the International Space Station, and what has your time been there like for you?
Well, we've been here since early March. We arrived around March 5th, and we've been here for now 133 days, and which is kind of amazing when I think about how long we've been here. But it's also one of those things where you kind of settle in and you start living here. And you kind of start taking things for granted, like floating, like just floating in the air and being able to do things yeah, and seeing the Earth from this vantage point though never gets old, and I'll never take that for granted. So it's been a great adventure. I call it an adventure living here on the space station and working every day. And then, we go back home sometime around September 1st. So August 26th is the day that we're supposed to undock, but, there's always, some give and take in the schedule. So we'll see when we get back.
Well, what's it been like, just living in microgravity, having to eating and bathrooms and hygiene and everything like that, just getting used to all that, and then never being able to put your feet firmly on the ground. What's it been like getting used to all that?
Well, it's when you first arrive, you are a bull in a china shop, and you're floating around, and you still have the same notions of that things work the same on the ground, but they don't. And so, for example, when you first arrive, if you don't, staple down everything before you move, stuff is going to go flying, and you lose a lot of things. Like, I mean, if you just, things just float away. And so that has been interesting getting used to. And like even doing research, if you're not careful, you can lose very important research. So you want to make sure that everything is Velcroed down or taped down, however you can do it. Make sure it's stable under a bungee. And so getting used to that is kind of one of the first things you learn. But floating in space and learning that how to stay stable and not applying too much force, because if you apply too much force, you'll go flying. But being able to just comfortably float through the lab and become really understanding that gravity no longer has a hold on you. And that is kind of one of the fun things about living here, is that you can become Spider-Man, and you can pretty much show kids how easy you can change perspectives. So
That
it's
is
been a fun
awesome.
time. It's been amazing. Uh, in a given day, for example, today I started out, I had exercise. So I had a lot of exercise I had to do. Then after that, we have something that we need to build. So we have to gather all those tools from different places, inventory it, and make sure we have everything that we need before we start building. And then after that, I had to do some maintenance inside our Node 3. There's a gas trap that goes on one of our pump package assemblies that had to be reinstalled. So little things like that. Your day is so far for this month, we've been doing a lot more maintenance on the station, making sure it's taken care of and that it's in ship shape for the next crew that comes up.
Well, can you tell us if you're doing any kind of research while you're up there and what the nature of that research is?
Well, we've been conducting a lot of experiments, some DNA related experiments where we're actually sequencing some genes and doing different things like that. But one of the major experiments is us. One of the things we're tracking are how things change in our body. And one of the experiments that I've been fortunate to be a big part of was the immunity assay. We can't do all the analysis here, but we can do all the processing here. And this is the first time they've been able to look at the immunity function in the body and do the collection on station using unique tools that they've developed. And so we collect the blood, we then process it through incubation and centrifuge, and then we freeze the blood. So it's a lot more complicated than that, but that is one of the major experiments that I've been a part of. We have Code Atom Lab that, I got a chance to take that apart and then someone else puts it back together. We have the Material Science Lab where we're changing out different specimens for the folks on the ground. But in general, one of the big things is that as an astronaut, one of the NASA astronauts, we are the eyes and the hands for most researchers on the ground. So they upmask their experiment. They have a set of procedures for it. And because we're mostly scientists, we're fighter pilots who have a scientific background, understanding that helps us to try to facilitate the experiment with the PI on the ground and help it to go better, help it to progress better. And, we don't always have all the background on it, and that's when we have to have a discussion with the person on the ground so that we can understand how to better be their eyes and hands on the station.
What's it like being? It seems like space travel is fraught with dangers. Do you ever have any fears about where you're living right now, the trip there, the trip home? Does anything scare you about what's going on?
Well, no. And, it's funny that, that question does come up for me, but, I kind of think that there's as many scary things on the ground that happen that I don't like. You can go anywhere and things can happen on the ground. And so I don't feel that same kind of trepidation here because we've all trained quite a bit. And don't get me wrong, things can happen. We recently had a safe haven event where we had a Russian satellite that kind of exploded in space and parts of it were coming towards the station. So we had to wake up in the middle of the night, go to our vehicle in safe haven. And, that sounds really scary, and it was at the time, but we were trained for it so we can go about the whole process in a calm, not so rushed of a fashion. We are rushing because, time is of the essence, but it's not a nervous, hurried rush and you don't know what to do. We've trained for a lot of emergencies. And so fear, no. Nervousness, yes. Things can happen anytime, any place, anywhere. And, understanding that makes me train more, helps me to ensure that I understand what's going on. I know what's going on. Read everything that you can to understand the situation. So fear, no, not so much. I think on the ground there's bigger things that happen that you don't expect in different places. I mean, you could be driving on the road. Different things can happen. So I guess I live my life knowing that things can happen, but being prepared is the way to go.
Yeah, we did have that little hurricane on Monday. I hope your house is in good condition and everything. Have you been able to check in back home since the disaster hit our area?
Well, I have someone looking out for my townhouse, plus I have someone living there right now, so hopefully they're okay too. I haven't heard from them, so I think he's doing pretty well.
Well, you're not from Houston, but you live here now. What do you think of the city? Have you taken some pride to it and it being Space City and all? Do you think it's a good spot for you?
Oh, I love Houston. Houston is one of those things. I never thought that I would uh, love another place more than Syracuse or even Maryland. Maryland was part of my formative years as well, but Houston has just grown so much since I moved there in 2009. And I've had the opportunity to go to a couple of the World Series games. There's always something to do in Houston. It is hot, but one of the nice things is that there's a great museum district, so you can go inside and cool off. So yeah, Houston, and the Houston Ballet is one of my favorites. Every year I go see the Nutcracker for Christmas, for the holidays. So Houston has so much to offer. I really do love the city. I live downtown near the Heights, and it's just one of my all-time favorite places to be. So, hi, Houston.
Well, we're awfully happy to have you as one of our residents here. So thank you for enjoying yourself there, and I'm glad you're enjoying yourself on the ISS. I really only have one question to kind of close on. I think we may have some follow-up still, but we have a pretty good viewership among families and their children. Any kids watching you floating around, spinning your microphone, climbing on the walls and whatnot. What would you say to a child who thinks, "I want to be her. What do I need to do?"
I say go for it. I was a kid in Syracuse. My parents weren't engineers or scientists. I had no clue how I would get to where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a scientist. And that's what I truly wanted to be as a kid. I never dreamed they would pick me for an astronaut. But as a kid, I wanted everything, and I just did not know how to go about doing it. And I just started working. And a lot of hard work and consistency over time is how I got here. One of the ways I got here. But it takes a lot of hard work. If you're willing to do the work and willing to pursue your dreams with all your heart, I see no reason that in the future that I see that you can't become whatever you want.
Well, that's awesome. I think that'll really resonate with our younger viewers and everything. So thank you so much for your time today. Before we sign off, we have a couple minutes left. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you would like to say or anything like that?
Just thanks for having me. This was a great interview. I appreciated your questions. And I just want to say hi to my family back home, my twin sister Janet, and Brian, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again, and enjoy your safe time up there and a safe reentry come September.
Thanks again. Bye.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming nominal audio communications.